This is a Maple Aesopalmatum osakatsuki. Don't know what that is, but it's certainly a nice looking species. Guess what? Cost me £40 from my favourite nursery, Savin Nurseries in Bedford. Great place to go. Link to their site is in the description if you want to know how. Today, I've got to 1, decide whether to repot it. 2, what branches do I need to take off this incredible monster, which is actually 3.5 to 4 foot. Do you know what? Lots of choices to make, but they're all pretty simple. So we're going to go through that process to start with. But first of all, hi, it's Xavier, and welcome to my bonsai retreat. Right now, it's February the 21st. As I said, picked this up last year, sort of probably late September, October time, can't quite remember. And it's a great big maple. And if you saw the episode all about Savin Nursery, you'll know that it has a very problematic right angle branch, which I said I need to make a decision about. More of that in a minute. If we look around it, it's actually got quite a reasonable structure going up. We've got this lovely branch here. And then we've got to decide here. We've got 1, 2, 3. And basically what we've got to try and do right now is make the decision, what do I prune off? And do I prune before I repot? Well, for me, no. This is right at the beginning. This is the sort of thing that you're going to pick up from a nursery right now in spring or late winter and go, wow, what am I going to do with it? It's in a pot. If I leave it in the pot, what's the problem? Those roots are going to continue to spin round, round, round. Eventually that will become a problem, because while they're small and supple, great, you can flare them out. But as it goes in here longer and longer, then that root problem gets worse. What is clear is that at the moment I've got a trunk. That's what I bought it for. I've got a branch here. I've got a branch here that I've got to get rid of. And in fact, that's what I need to do, because what I don't want is loads of wasted energy going up to the top of this tree. Off you go. When really, I want to build everything from this point. So we need this tree to do a bit of work. And first of all, my view is let's do some chopping. Big chops. And the first chop we're going to do is this one here. It's quite low on the trunk itself, but it's at right angles. There's absolutely nothing I can do with it. I did discuss potentially growing a long whip, which I can then thread graft up. That may be for the future. Right now, the only thing we can do is cut it. And what about this? Well, all I need to do there, just a basic protection, all I'm using is some petroleum jelly. And what I'm hoping for is to see whether this promotes some budding from here, so I can get a shoot at a better angle. Now there will be groups of you screaming out, Zav, surely could have done some air layers on this. And I looked at it, but when you actually look at the structure, we've got handlebars, right angles, very straight lengths here. Again, big wide angles. In fact, nowhere along there did I think was suitable to air layer. So that was one of my reasons. And the other reason was I've got a lot of maples. And behind me on that tree growing from my lovely neighbour, I've got 2 air layers coming off that maple. And that'll be something you're going to see in a later time, somewhere around the middle of May, I should think. So if you want to see that, don't forget, hit the old like, subscribe and all that sort of stuff. So we get rid of that. And then we're going to work around again. We've got that sealed off. Straight away, I've got this one here. I don't need that. So we'll get rid of that. So next, let's have a look at this here. Now, whether the front is here, or indeed here, I've got 3 branches there. Now, when we look at that, very, very straight, and ideally, I'd probably want to take this middle one out, because the angle between those two is probably about 75 degrees, not a bad angle. Unfortunately, again, if you saw my video, you'll know that last year I was a little bit clumsy with that. So we've already got a decision made for us, and we'll remove that. Hopefully I'm actually going to get something that'll come and bud from back here. This isn't ideal, but we have got a shoot here and a shoot here. So what I will do is just take the back off, just let these grow out, and then we follow this along. We've actually got to go quite a way before we get some nice branches here. There's one here, and then there's one at the top here. So I'm actually just going to take that top one off. So there is what we've got for our lower part of the branch. Now I have put some cut paste on the ends, and you notice here we've actually got that lichen. We can just right now pull that all off and go right around and just get it off, because potentially we may get buds coming from here. Now using this may actually cause me to rub away any potential buds, but you can also use your fingernails or whatever, or a small knife just to pick it off. The other thing I might do is just wire that up. And the only reason I've put some wire on there is just so I can just bring this one, at the moment it's very vertical. I do want to try just take it away from the vertical just a weeny bit. And then the same with this. Just try and get the buds going out this way rather than that way. Okay, so we've got this side done. We've sealed this off, so really we've just got to decide, and hopefully it's fairly obvious, that out of these, obviously the first thing we ask ourselves as we go further up the tree, what are we looking at? If we've got the opportunity, movement, taper. Movement, not really much, but taper, definitely. These two are narrower than this. This great thick one in the middle, well, I think that answers itself. So I'm going to take that off. And again, I asked myself the same question: was there anywhere there that I could realistically do a nice air layer? No. Now, a couple of you may actually be saying, Sav, February the 20th, isn't it a bit early? Are you likely to get a bit of cold and frost? And again, this is the balance that all of us struggle with in this hobby. The balance between, is it going to be too early to do these? Am I going to risk damaging buds, damaging roots? All I can do is look ahead, and I've got 2-3 weeks of rain and temperatures that are well above zero, around the 4 or 5 overnight. For me, by the time 2 or 3 weeks have gone, those buds are going to be opening up. I need to start doing the work now. Keeping things in proportion as the trunk goes up, we really just need to cut the tops there. Now, you may be worried and say, but there's no buds, there's nothing there that shows it's going to give me anything I want. And yeah, potentially there's a risk that when I do a cut, say like this, there's no visible buds anywhere along this length. This whole lot could die all the way back. And this is where you've got to make sure when you buy nursery material, make sure it's healthy. Maple are a very, very vigorous species. You could pretty well cut this all the way back to here, which is what I'm going to do. Get rid of that one. And it should send out lots of new shoots in response to what it would see as an emergency. It's going into the new year. It's getting ready to bud forth and send out lots of new leaf growth to bring in energy through the year. And suddenly, equivalent of a deer has gone in there and just completely mowed the top off it. If it's healthy, it's got a good root structure, then it should respond by sending all that energy that's stored there into producing lots of new buds all over these. Now, let's have a look at the roots. Well, there they are, and the temptation would probably be to saw that in half, and certainly you've seen me do that before. Well, this time I'm not. I'm going to be sorting through them, untangling, and see if I can spread them out. Am I going to do that now? Well, not yet. I've got to find myself a pot and something to put it in. I am thinking of quite a big washing up bucket, or ideally, if you had a wooden box, that would be even better. Or do I put it in the growing bed? Now, there's a suggestion. Especially if I want to get nice, thick, healthy growth, that may well be the best suggestion. Well, in the end, the decision was relatively easy, and for the first time in 2026, we're going to see the potting tray. I am going to be taking this out. As I said, it's not my intention to actually cut through those roots. I want to have a look and see exactly what's there. I've got a pile of nice sort of, probably a 70-30 inorganic, organic split. I have put a bit of potting mix in there, and there is a bit of pine bark. And also, I'll be putting in some 1mm leca. Or, sorry, not 1mm, 10 centimetre leca, just to give a bit of variation. And I've decided to go for my washing up pots. They've got holes in the bottom. I'll put a layer of leca on the bottom and sit that in there nicely. All we need to do now is just work our way through this root. Now, because I've done so much cutting, I don't want to take too much roots off, but should we have a little look and see exactly what's down here? Many of you who are used to the bonsai retreat will know that I've got my handmade Bobcat root rake made by Matt. It was a Bobcat bonsai. Not sure whether Matt's still doing stuff, but I must have a look. But yeah, this has been invaluable. It's actually got some nice rotational twists in the actual shaft, which makes it glide through these roots with ease. Now, look, I'm not going to insult you all by taking you through this process, but the more time and care you take, the better. Just tease and find out, one, where the nabari starts, i.e. the first set of really roots that we want to be looking to have a root base spread from. There we go. And the one thing you would be looking for with anything like this is having a look to see if you've got the white growing tips on the edges or anything. And at the moment, there's no white growing tips showing, which is good. The other reason I want to do this is because it's nursery stock. I do want to make sure we haven't got any sort of weevils or horrible grubs that may actually cause us bigger problems in the long run. And certainly when some of your nursery soil material in stock, you can find, I think it's wine weevils or something like that. And again, you can see how you're able to spread those roots around. If you leave those too long, they actually set in position downwards. Absolute nightmare. So let me keep slowly working the soil out, and I am going to take all the soil out. Now you're going to reach a point where you've got all these roots pulling out and coming up. You can see these ones, the twisting round, and there's definitely quite a hard, I think the base is somewhere about here, to be honest, but we've got this mass here which is going upwards, so there's going to be some pretty horrible roots there, I think. And again, the problem we've got with nursery material is you never quite know what you're going to get till you get there. Now once I've got to this stage, all I'm going to do is then use my thin chopstick or something like that, and I'm just going to be poking now and continuing to just slowly ease the soil out, because what I don't want to do now is start ripping more and more of these roots. The less damage you do to these roots, which in the end are going to be feeding the growth for this in this important first year at Repot. So anyway, I'll keep working down here. I haven't actually found the nabari yet, so I fear we're going to lose a lot of these top roots. And this is when you start to get just a little bit frightened. All the roots have been cleaned off. You can see them and you've got loads of them. But here you go. If we look in close here, the base is actually all the way down here. Look at the twisting on there. You could try to straighten them, but the reality is you need to try and find stuff that's down here. You look here, we've got great big knot just here. And there's no doubt that this is definitely the bit that scares most people, especially if you're new to the hobby. You know, you have a look at this great tangle of roots and think, how on earth do I get them to splay out at a nice sort of 360 radial angle? Well, do you know what? This is the first and hardest task you've got to do. And sometimes it is just about making those tough decisions and rolling the dice. I've got a load of roots up here that are very high. I will never be able to get them into a pot. So I'm just going to slowly remove these upward ones that are never ever going to be able to go down. You can already see that the trunk line is right down here. There's a good 1.5 centimeters above it, and we've got one here that's actually going upwards. So we'll need to remove that. There's another upward one growing there. This one is going right around the tree, so we'll get rid of it. And it really is a slow, systematic approach of tracking and tracing where there are clear roots that you definitely don't want or definitely can't manipulate downwards. And you know, we look here, these are all going upwards. We've got to look at the origin they come from, and they're actually coming from the top of a root mass. So I'm actually going to remove a lot of these so I can actually see. If you look there, there's a white, that's a root that's actually going vertically upwards. I'm going to try and trace that further down. Let's see, we've got this here, this is crossing, so we're never going to want that. And it's a very, very slow process, but it looks like this root here is probably going to be the start of the Nabari hive. So having found that the base where the roots are here, we've definitely got some nice roots here, but I've got to be quite brutal and hard, because anything above this is absolutely wasted. And you know, the argument is that some people say, oh, just keep some of those roots on, the tree needs it. But from my experience, if you leave too many of those roots on that are going the wrong direction, especially if they're strong roots, then the tree will direct energy more that way. You're just going to compound the problems. So it's better to go hard early and then see what you've got left. I mean, this mat here, unless it could go at an angle, but it's going right across the front of the tree. So I am going to just take the decision. There's very, very fine feeder roots closer in, and I'm going to rely on those. And do you know what? For the first year, we're not going to get a load of growth. It is going to sulk. It's part of bonsai. You've got to be ready for that sort of challenge. Anyway, I'm going to keep working my way through there. There is no strict guidelines. Ideally, I want to have 3 or 4 radial bigger roots that are a horizontal plane or going downwards. Only way I can find that is if I dig in there and get in there. I took off absolutely tons and tons of roots, and this is the example. If I had left even half of them in that root ball, i.e. by cutting across halfway through the root ball, that tangled mess with the gnarly sort of fingers all like that would have just got worse. It would have been harder and harder. Every year you leave that decision away, it gets harder and harder to rectify. And there you go. It's well, it's barely a shadow of its former self. And I've got this on a whiteboard to try and show you, but we've actually got, as you can see, quite a few radial roots, and you know, I'm fully confident that it should, all things being equal, grow on and do well from there. And it's important that if you look, I've cut everything back quite short, because where those cut sites are, that is where the new root growth is going to come from. So the longer you leave it, again, the more difficult it is. You want to bring it back. It's no different. The ramification of the root system will reflect the ramification, ultimately, of the whole branch structure of the tree. The two correlate and work together in a symbiosis. There's a few other sort of ugly, great big upward ones there I could remove, but there is a point where you go, I want to have something to tie this thing down to. But I have got lots of nice, flexible roots to work from. Those roots have got to support the buds and leaves that come from here. So yes, we will get a much more smaller growth, but if that's tied down, I'll be pretty certain that we're going to get some good results from this. That's scary. There's a lot of you out there I know who are going, I could never take that much off. But trust me, I've been doing this for 25 years. Watch a lot of the other professionals. Watch Nigel Saunders when you see just how much roots he takes off on that initial repot. And yes, every now and then the tree says, no way, I'm dying. And that's the hobby. That's something you've got to be prepared to deal with. But that is pretty well the level of roots that I will leave on anything that's repotted. And there you go. I've got my washing up bucket, and in the bottom of there I've lined it with just some common green mesh, which works perfectly well in this situation. Then I've got some wire that I'm going to use to support the tree, and when you look inside there's a combination of my normal bonsai mix plus some sort of 1 centimetre leca. Again, nice free draining, it's what we need. Then the main soil mix, again, we've got it here. What I will do is I'll add some activated charcoal. And again, I find certainly from a lot of the people who use it that it's very, very good for promoting good, healthy root growth. And you'll always hear me going on about the Oceana Root Boost. I've now been using it for 3 years on my repots. Looks like rabbit pellets. And I just sprinkle some of that into the mix, and then that acts as a slow release root boost. Now these have been kept soaked and I've given it another quick rinse. Ideally we want to try, it looks like it's actually going to be a bit of an angle based on that root plane, but don't need to worry too much about that. All I need to do is settle it into here, and these nice fibrous roots I'm going to make sure are radiating outwards and down. And you can use any number of methods to make sure they do that, but this is how you get that 360 fan. What I do need to try and do is get the wire in there to just hold this one down. And then all we need to do is make sure that as we put soil down, we spread those roots out to try and maximize that radial root so they all fan out. And that is the first repot of 2026. Who knows? But I think we've got a nice basic structure. As I said, it was the root plane itself that said it's not going to be upright, it's just going to be slightly slanting. It's in there. Hopefully we're going to get some budding coming from here, and if you know Japanese maple, you know that come sort of mid-May we're in there rubbing all those new buds off that are coming through. I'm sure this will give us loads. One big thing left to do. And we don't just water it once, we water it twice, or even 3 times. We want all that water to come out of the base, getting rid of all those fines. So here you go. It's all nicely watered, and from that great big monstrosity that you're probably seeing in front of you right now, we're down to this. Water still coming out, and I have a lot of confidence that we're going to get loads and loads of shoots and new buds coming out of this. And I do love the trunk, and I think this is going to potentially make a really nice bonsai sometime in the not so far distant future, but I think at least 18 months, probably 2 years before we start seeing any sort of realistic decent growth for creating our primary, well, we've got our primary branches here, for creating our secondary structure or secondary scaffolding. That's probably going to be the next time we properly see this. This will feature in a playlist, but at the moment it's going to sit in my nursery to bonsai playlist series. Again, the link will be in the description. Certainly if you want to see this, the Fuji cherry, there's a number of fun ones that I've taken from nursery plant, and we're seeing them develop to bonsai. But hopefully you've seen one, just how hard you've got to prune, just how scary it can be when you actually have a look and see what that root mass is. Understand why it is that although you see a lot of us, me included, cutting halfway through a root ball with a saw, sometimes more prudent, especially if you've got less experience, to actually do the slow time working your way through those roots, getting all the soil out. Say again, Japanese maple, definitely you can do complete and utter soil removal, and then you want to get in there with some nice free draining inorganic with perhaps a little bit of organic mixed in there. I'm really happy the bonsai season has truly started for 2026. Anyway, if you want to see more from my nursery to bonsai series, in particular the Fuji cherry, which is going to be out in flower very, very soon, that's the video to watch. Otherwise, happy bonsai and God bless. Cheers.